Welcome to Imperfect Momming. Our children are constantly looking to us for examples. The term role model doesn't quite cut it here. We are shaping their worldview with every move we make. You see, it's not in the lectures we give or moments where we are actively attempting to teach them. It's in the micro movements we make, the unconscious ways in which we navigate life. We are constantly teaching our children how to show up for themselves, their friends, their future partners, and even their future children. So what can we do to ensure we are raising thoughtful, compassionate, self-aware human beings? We have to become them ourselves. No one is perfect, but we can still all be better, and it starts with self-healing. Let's get to it. Welcome back to Imperfect Momming, and we have a very special guest today, Afsaneh Moradian. Welcome to Imperfect Momming.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
And did I say your name right?
Perfect.
Pat myself on the back. We had a whole cool conversation about last names before we hit record. And when you share this podcast with your friend who has the same original last name that my family had, then tell her where she can find me.
Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
My name is Afsaneh Moradian, as you said so perfectly. I am a picture book author. I'm the author of the Jamie is Jamie series, put out by Free Spirit Publishing. And I'm a homeschooling coach, and I work mostly with parents who are struggling to homeschool their neurodiverse and high needs kids and trying to figure out, how to plan those activities, like the communication piece, the planning piece, how to get the most connection. Because that's really, parents want to homeschool to have a stronger connection with their kids. And when it becomes all about power struggles and meltdowns, it becomes a very different experience than what we expected. So I help parents get back to the original plan, which was having fun, learning, teaching your kid, connecting with them, spending time with them, and not having those power struggles get in the way.
Yeah. I know exactly who I'm going to share this podcast episode with. The group that I'm in, as well as a mom that I just met. But that is really, really cool. My son's on the spectrum, so I'm in a couple of mom groups that for children on the spectrum, and he's high functioning, so it's I don't have as many of or the same types of struggles. We have struggles, just not the same kinds. And you said my favorite word, which is connection, and that you help with that. And when you are helping with connection, are you thinking about parent-child connection or child with other children connection, or both?
Well, it starts with the parent-child connection because I work with the parents. I don't work with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
So for a parent to homeschool day after day after day, I think we need to feel like we're getting something out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's this very one-sided, thankless task. And like we do a lot of that as parents, but that's different than the education of your child, right? So there's a lot of different ways to communicate and interact with a neurodiverse child or a high needs child that can foster communication. And it a lot of it's unexpected. It's not intuitive. It's not how we were raised or what we experienced. So sometimes when I show parents different ways to understand behavior or different ways to respond, it doesn't feel very comfortable, but it works.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see the child is offering connection in a way that's different than you expect or than we commonly think about it. So definitely fostering that connection. The more kids feel connected to their parents and loved and accepted by their parents, the happier and more confident they are in the world. So that really matters a lot. And I think then then the parent can really help the kid make connections to other kids. So that's
Yeah. Um, because that's the thing that stops me from homeschooling is that I have an only child and we live in the middle of nowhere. So we have no neighbors. And he's an only child, so he would be one essentially 100% dependent on me for all of his entertainment and education and biological needs. Um, and that's not something that I have the capacity for at this point in my life, but I love that there's support if I do change my mind.
sure. And if school is working for your child, if it isn't broken, don't fix it, right? Like I'm not one of those people that says, take your child out of school and everyone must homeschool. It's just a lot of parents, myself included, we're just not able to find school settings where our kids can thrive.
Mhm.
And so homeschooling becomes the best option. And then once you've decided that, and then you try it and it's more of a struggle than you expected,
Mhm.
that's when you come to me for coaching. That's when you need help to figure out how do you set this up? What does this mean for your child?
Yeah.
Because our kids are so unique. They think, they experience, they process so differently. So there really isn't a one size fits all when you're talking about our neurodiverse kids. So,
Yeah. Well, I was just having a conversation with someone on my last episode, at least in the last recording session. So I don't know if it was actually the last episode, but um, we were talking about reactive parenting versus proactive. That's not the word that she used, but that's where I'm going with. And that if I was to decide, because I'm in the moment, it's working. Um, and there's a lot of times that I don't enjoy the lessons that he's learning with his teachers or with the kids that are there or whatever the case may be. So what I would do as a parent, if when and if I decide to pull him out of traditional school, is set myself up for a win by hiring you before we start having problems.
well, yeah, that would be ideal, right? To have some foundation in what does it mean to homeschool my child. But I think one of the great things about homeschooling is the flexibility and the openness and the creativity of it.
Yeah.
So as much as we could like get you set up for certain things to look out for, it's really in the moment, the troubleshooting, the trial and error, seeing how your child responds to things,
Mm.
keeping it really open-ended so that there's room for your child to have their ideas and offer some direction in what they want to learn. My child said to me 2 days ago, they said, Mom, can I like lesson plan with you? Because I don't think your lessons are intellectually stimulating enough, which is like a dagger in my heart. I've been an educator over 20 years. I write curriculum.
Right.
What do you mean? And then, but when you said reactive versus
Yeah.
proactive, so okay, the dagger was in my heart. I took a deep breath and I thought, oh, my child is so developmentally appropriate. My child is at the age where so many of the words that come out of their mouth are meant to cut, are meant to hurt, and I can't take it personally. But sure, tomorrow we will do something that is far more intellectually stimulating and interesting and all of that. So I do take it and I do listen and I make adjustments, but it's really hard not to take those things personally. And I think that's a real challenge with homeschooling when your child doesn't want to do the assignment. It's really hard not to take that personally, not to see it as a challenge of your authority or disrespect or, just all we get triggered. We always think about our kids' triggers, but we get triggered too, especially if you're not feeling great about homeschooling. And when your child says no, it's kind of a reinforcement of your worst fears and anxieties and worries about it. Like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe I'm not good at this. Maybe I'm, failing all those awful, awful things that of course aren't true. It just means you need to make some changes and you need a little help and guidance to make changes. Doesn't mean you're failing. Doesn't mean you're an awful parent. Doesn't mean any of that at all. It just means that it's not super obvious how to homeschool your child. And that needs a little work to figure out. But it's really hard not to take it personally.
Yeah.
I know.
And the beautiful thing about what you described is that your child knows what is he or she,
They,
they,
non-binary,
okay.
they.
That they know what is stimulating to them, and or at the very least they know what's not stimulating to them, and are able to communicate that to you so that they can learn better, which
Exactly.
is perfect. And the whole and part of the point of homeschooling is that they can learn what they want to learn, and in a way that they learn best as well.
Yes, and in a way that brings in all of the things that we also want them to learn
Mm-hmm.
and goes beyond what the expectations are based on grade or age. And that becomes the real awesome part, that they take it to the next level because they're interested and they want to. So
Right.
it's really not putting those restrictions. In school, this is what we learn in third grade. This is what you learn in eighth grade. These are the skills you have to know. And in homeschooling, it's a little messy. Okay, so maybe the skills in some area need work, but in other areas, they're like a grade or two above, beyond advanced, these words advanced behind, they're so arbitrary, right?
Right.
But that's really the openness and the messiness. And what we want is we want our kids doing more work than we are. That's the point of homeschooling. They're supposed to have agency. They're supposed to take an active role in their learning, and we're supposed to do less than them. And that's like one of the first alarms that should go off. If you're doing more work than your child is during learning time, you need to call me because they're supposed to do the work
Yeah.
and you're supposed to be facilitating, setting them up for success, as you said, right? Setting up the experience, guiding them, helping if necessary, cheerleading if necessary. But if you're the one breaking a sweat and they're sitting there like, not, like, whatever, mom, I'm not doing anything, that's not really the point of homeschooling. And that was the rule that I used when I started teaching too, was the student should be doing far more work than the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
It's their education, it's their learning, they need to be doing it. So our job is to set it up so they're excited and interested and want to do it, and then they just run with it and do all the work. And we get to sit there and like, I don't want to be flip, but like check your phone or have your coffee or, smile and nod and yay, keep going. It's really, we've already been through school. We're
Right.
learning with them, but we're not like going through it a second time. They're going through it and we are learning along the way. Now I know the 4 components of blood. I didn't learn that in high school. I learned it yesterday from mini marshmallows, rainbow sprinkles, red Skittles, and corn syrup. So I'm definitely learning and I'm excited about that, but I'm not doing the work. So it's a difference.
I love that, and the picture that you're painting is beautiful, and what I would really love, and I don't know that I have the capacity for it. And the reason I say that is because my heart's been pulled in that direction several times today, in fact.
Oh.
So I'm like, oh, is this my next level of growth? We'll see. I'm open to it. We'll see. But I think it's beautiful that your child can communicate with you, that you took a moment to pause, that you didn't take it personally, maybe a little bit at first. I think we all take things personally a little bit at first. And I mean, little things that aren't even an attack on our character. Um, when I was waking my son up this morning and he was grumpy, and I just thought, it really sucks to be the only excited person to be alive at 7 o'clock in the morning in my house. Like, I'm the only person that's excited to be alive at 7 in the morning. And it, like, there's a little part of me that takes that personally, but not 100%. But for a second, it's like nobody wants to be awake with me right now.
Right.
Dogs.
Well,
The dogs want to be awake with me at 7 in the morning. They're happy to see me at 5.
that's definitely why there are dogs. To be honest, I think dogs fill in the gap of what we wish we had from our family because their hormones are going. Their hormones are going when they're 5, when they're 10, when they're teenagers. You know, there's always hormonal changes. We've got our own hormonal changes going on, and it's you have to see the big picture. There's development happening. There's learning happening. There's, all kinds of stuff going on, and we are just one little part of that. But the waking up thing is so funny because I'm all about solving problems. Every problem has a solution. That's my philosophy about life, about homeschooling, about parenting. There's always a solution. And my child does not wake up well in the mornings and can't manage to get to, we start homeschooling at 9 a.m., except not if my child's asleep. Not there. It's like, how do you not get to the living room by 9 a.m.? Like, it's the same house. So, the idea of like getting up, getting dressed, some of those independent life skills that I'd love independence in those areas. I thought, okay, we're going to get an alarm clock, and that obnoxious alarm is going to go off, and you're going to wake up and get dressed and get yourself breakfast and all ready to go. And every night, since we just got over the weekend, and every night there's been a rainstorm, the electricity's gone off for just a second, so then the alarm clock doesn't work. So every single morning, my brilliant plan has been foiled, and it's like, universe, what are you trying to tell me? That I have to wake my child up for the rest of their childhood.
Yeah.
So it's just part of the job, right? And it's always good if we can laugh about it. Some of the really hard, frustrating things, just we have to kind of make a joke out of it. Otherwise, we'll get gray hairs too
Right.
quickly.
And the flip side is that I'm not excited to be alive after 8. So and the rest of my house is. So including the dogs. The dogs are good all 24/7. And how old is your child?
10,
And yeah, my
11.
son
Yeah.
is just turned 11. So we're at the same hormonal age, I think.
Yes. Yes. And just, to everyone listening who has a child approaching 10, I'm not saying tolerate the rudeness, but expect the rudeness because it does come and it is hormonal, but you don't have to love it or tolerate. You can say that's very rude. I don't want to be spoken to that way. But it is hormonal. It's not like your child wakes up and is all of a sudden an unpleasant human. They just have a lot going on inside their bodies. And there's more than one time when, the anger comes, the irrational responses, and I just look at them and say, wow, looks like there's a lot of big stuff going on inside of you right now. Would you like a hug?
Mm.
And that has taken all of my strength because the way it gets expressed is so it's pretty ugly sometimes and kind of mean sometimes. And it's the stuff that really makes you not want to give someone a hug. But if you really can just look past it all, like forget about the words and just say, oh, okay, this is hormones and big changes going on, and maybe I could just give a hug and just help them, regulate, calm down a little bit. I've done that, and my child has thanked me.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Mom. I really needed this. Thanks. And one time I said, do you need a hug? It just seems like there's a lot going on. And I hugged my child, and they just burst out crying because there's so much going on. So it's really easy to forget because we can't see what's happening inside of them, but the hormone stuff is real. It's real and it's confusing, and they feel angry when they're not. They feel things and there's no reason. They don't know why they feel it, and it's hard to talk about it.
Mhm.
So, you know, you can cut them slack by not having like a punishment for it, but you also can say, I don't really want to be spoken to. Like you can establish a boundary without making it punitive
Yeah.
and understand what's going on with them. And then, can have some fun with it. If they're rude, maybe they have to wash the dishes and you don't have to wash the dishes, you can get creative with how you deal with
Right.
their rudeness. But it's really hormonal. It's really par for the course.
Yeah.
So.
I appreciate the reminder because this morning I asked my son to put on his backpack and he didn't respond and he didn't have his backpack on. So a few minutes later I said, you need to put your backpack on. And he said, I know, Mom. And I was like, well, how would I know that you know when you didn't respond and you don't have your backpack on? And he said, the fact that I've been wearing my backpack every day since I started school. And I was like, uh-huh. Said touche. And it doesn't change the fact that there was zero communication and and he goes, I know, Mom, I feel really bad about it. Oh, well, that wasn't what I wanted either. So I appreciate the reminder that in those moments, that would be a good time to also ask for a hug, because that is how I've dealt with those situations in the past. And I'm a little hormonal right now and feeling a little off my game, and I could use a hug too.
Yeah. Yeah, a hug or humor. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Duh. Of course, it's like it's hard to use humor to laugh stuff off, but it certainly helps if you can, you know, laugh at. Not everyone likes to be laughed at, but if you can laugh at yourself, it's a
Hmm.
good starting point.
Yes,
And
absolutely. No, I appreciate everything that you've said. There's been so many good gold nuggets in there that, they're around the time that they're 10, that they're have lots of hormones and, you know, not always responding with anger, which might have been how you were responded to when you had an attitude. Our parents might not have known any better. Um, and now we have access to so much more information. I think that there's a lot more books written on teenagers and hormones and all of that kind of stuff. We also have easier access to, there's so many people that are teaching just beautiful awarenesses, and our parents didn't have access to that, and we do, and we should take advantage of it and understand that we're all doing the best that we can with the information and awareness that we have at the time.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think also remembering how you felt when it was happening to you. I think empathy is a huge part of parenting. And empathy, I think, is kind of tricky when you have a neurodivergent child because how you felt about something is probably not how they're going to feel about the same thing. But if you know that you got yelled at when you left the lights on and it made you feel really small, you maybe, when you hear yourself yelling at your child to turn the lights off, it'll make you, think for a second. Oh, I really didn't like that when that was done to me. I'm not going to do that. So, we either repeat what we experienced or we try so hard to break with it, but we don't always know what to replace it with. Or sometimes, I think most of us do a little bit of both. And I've definitely had those moments where it's like, you're turning me into grandma. Stop. I don't want to be my mother. Yeah, I think, all moms have like a little bit of we can lose it in our own ways, right? I think that's
Yeah.
part of the pressures of motherhood. But if we can be aware that it's happening and, if you can make a joke out of it, that's so much better. But,
Yeah.
If not, at least you can say, oh, oh, I need to like go in the other room and take a deep breath and like stop. Like
Yeah.
I hear myself, I don't want to do this right now. I'm just gonna stop and, you know, figure out a different way to do it next time. That helps.
I love that you used the light example because my dad used to make a joke every time I left the light on in my bedroom or in my closet. He would say that there was a mouse reading in my bedroom or in my closet, and that was my cue to go turn off the light in my bedroom and closet. And I forgot about that. So I appreciate that reminder. That was always fun.
No, it's funny. I tell my kid, I'm like, you're leaving a trail. You're like Hansel and Gretel. I can track your movements by the lights that are on in the house. This is amazing.
That's so funny.
So, yeah, it's
We,
then, you know,
we really do
years.
have mice that turn on the lights because my my boyfriend was following me, was going through the house turning lights off, but they were all on, and I don't think I was turning lights on. So maybe it was I don't know. It's funny because I don't know if we just all do it so unconsciously, turning the lights on, but it's like I don't remember turning any lights on after 5 o'clock in the morning, and I probably turned them all on, but I also feel like I go through the house and turn off all the lights, so there's only one person left. It's either him or mice. Turn it on, or the ghosts. So there's ghosts that live here, I think. So
Right. Yeah, that's very funny. Maybe the dog, I think your dogs are evolving and they're hitting the switches, right?
I have our new dog has eaten at least two whole pizzas since she's been in the house, since she's moved in with us. At least two. So she
Sounds
could
very happy. I bet that's the
very happy
happiest
dog.
dog
Oh yeah,
possible.
very happy and full. Uh, the funny thing is, I know this isn't a dog podcast, but we've been trying to train her, and she really does not care about treats. She was a rescue. She grew up on the streets. I'm using air quotes. She grew up on the streets, and so she doesn't care about treats, and she really doesn't even care about dog food. Um, but we've been using, and I should also say, she doesn't care about anything that we say or want her to do. It's all about what she wants to do and when she wants to do it. So if she gets out of the house, she won't come back till she's ready. So we've been trying to train her to come back into the house, that when she comes back into the house, she gets a hot dog. And then I've also trained her to sit with hot dogs. And then yesterday morning and this morning, I made bacon, and the other dogs benefiting from this dog getting trained. And so both dogs got some bacon, but I made her sit before she got the bacon. So I'm like super excited that now she's come in the house twice and she's sat 3 times on command for this bacon or hot dog. And I was like, who knew that you could train a dog with bacon or hot dog? Every dog trainer ever knew that.
Right.
But that was my Facebook post this morning because it was like such a revelation to me and I was like, oh yeah, every dog trainer ever.
Right. Right. But isn't that how it is? Like that's a lot of coaching also.
Mhm.
I'm not saying things that are revolutionary concepts. It's just stuff that maybe you've heard but you don't know how to do. And it's like diet and exercise. Well, if you watch what you eat, watch your portions, and you exercise, most people lose weight.
Mhm.
But that's really hard to do. It's like it sounds so simple. It's
Right.
really hard to do. So I feel like a lot of stuff with parenting and with homeschooling, it's stuff that it makes a lot of sense, but you don't necessarily think of it on your own, or you don't know how to do it because you just didn't have that example. So you want to do it differently and you try, but there are some skills involved. So like like that consistency with any forming new habits, right? The consistency required is a really hard thing. But I think that's where the parallels end between dog training and homeschooling your kid. I don't think there's any other similarities. You can't, maybe you can bribe your kid with bacon, but I don't recommend bribing. So it's a totally different thing.
I mean, yeah, I was gonna say just with food, but no, creates a whole new problem. I love that you related it back to parenting because I frequently go off on random tangents about my life, and then I love when my guests bring it right back to the podcast. I'm like, you're brilliant that way. Good job.
Well, I don't want anyone getting confused about like training their kids with bacon bits, all right? So, no, that's not what we're saying.
No, it's not. Is there a piece of advice that you want to share with moms?
Yeah, the power of the apology. You always get a second chance tomorrow. No matter how bad it is today, no matter how much you feel like you've screwed up and how bad your behavior was, how bad your kid's behavior was, whatever, the lowest of the lows, it can always get better. And you start with an apology, a full apology, where you take responsibility for what you've done and you explain how you're going to do things differently next time. And then take actions to do it differently. So it's really meaningful. But it's amazing. It's never too late. 20 years can go by. And when, a parent apologizes to a child, it will always have that. It might not be enough 20 years later, but it always has that power because we are the parents and we have so much power and so much influence over our kids. So apologizing, admitting that you were wrong, explaining why you did what you did, and what you wish you had done differently and what you're going to do next time goes a really long way, especially for showing kids how to apologize to others. And we absolutely want to raise kids that become adults who apologize when they hurt people or make mistakes. So cut yourself some slack and wait till everyone's calm and then go apologize to your kid. And it will give you a clean slate to do things differently, tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that's my big advice. And of course, I'm here to help you and support you with whatever you need with homeschooling.
Yeah. And if that's not a book, it should be a book title because that sounds like a book title to me. And it's super true. Even the 20 years later, like whether or not they receive it is the way that you're expecting is up to the child. But I've heard at least two parents of adult children who have apologized 10 or 20 years later, and the response that they get back is healing. The apology is healing for the child, and the response that they get back from the child is healing to the parent. And I don't think that there's ever a time that an apology doesn't do something. And I mean, I don't even think either of my parents did anything all that wrong. And if they apologized for things, then I think that there'd be healing on both sides. So I agree 125 to 50%. Is there a book that has been instrumental in your personal development journey?
Yeah, there's a book called Reviving Ophelia, and I feel very strongly that all women, moms, especially if you're the parent, doesn't matter if you're a mom or not, if you're the parent of a female child, I really think we all need to read the book Reviving Ophelia. It's been around for a very long time, but it really explains so clearly all of the pressure and the harm that is done to adolescent girls in just our normal lives. And it's really important to read if you were an adolescent girl and you were on the receiving end of that. And it's really important to read as a parent today because there's so many ideas that we get from the society, from the world that we live in, right? From our society, from how, women are depicted, girls are depicted, from, body type to fashion to personality to interest to all kinds of things. And Reviving Ophelia is just really brilliant at sorting through all of that and separating who you are and any damage done to you from actually who you are, right? And so you can separate out all of the harmful behaviors that are encouraged from who you are as an individual and the kind of life that you want to have. So I'm going to read it again. I have a non-binary child who's female presenting, but I'm a little hard. I'm not ready to read it again. I know, because I think it's way harder to be an adolescent now than and it was hard when it's hard for everyone, but it's way harder now. It's way different now. So I will have to read it again in a couple of years. And, every now and then we have conversations like, could you be, part of the like less than 5% that doesn't develop an eating disorder? Can you not go through all the stuff that me and my friends went through? Is there any way I can prevent that, protect you, all that sort of stuff? So I really encourage everyone. I think it's an illuminating and healing book for, I think, all of us to read. So Reviving Ophelia is my
The title sounds fiction, but it's nonfiction. It's a nonfiction book, or it's fiction?
It's nonfiction. It's written by a psychologist.
Oh.
It's the first edition was in the 90s, and then it's been updated throughout the years.
Wow.
So you can get it. It's easy to get if you've got access to a cloud library. You can get it, from libraries have it. It's pretty easy to get, but I haven't read any psychology book equal to that's had that much of an impact on me. And reading it, I really thought so much about my mother, actually, and it helped me understand her a lot more too. And I think it's really the book that, women of different ages really should read. I really do. I think it's an incredible book. So I very much recommend it. And then DM me if you listen and you read it. I want to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
I want to know what you thought of it. So send me a DM and let's discuss it. Right? Let's get a book club going about
right.
it. I think it's a really important book. So.
Yeah, we might have to get that going. Well, thank you so much for being here. Where can our listeners find you?
My website is mlccoaching.com, and I'm on Instagram. My name is reversed, so it's moradian.afsaneh on Instagram, and you can send me a DM, and when I finally remember to check the other inbox, I will absolutely respond to you. So it might not be that quick because I always forget there's another inbox. And on Facebook, it's MLC Homeschool Coaching. And again, that's easier. Send me a message on Facebook. I'll get it right away. So I'm very easily accessible and love to talk way too much. So, send me a message and you'll get a longer response than you probably like.
I love when people respond to me or send me messages with voice messages, especially when they're longer, because I'm an auditory processor. So when people send me voice messages, like, I connect with them so much better, which is probably why I like podcasts so much, or podcasting so much too. But I'm totally down for a voice message, especially if it's longer. I love those. But thank you so much again for being here today and sharing your wisdom with me and with our guests, and giving me something to think about. Another feather in the cap for possibly homeschooling one of these days.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So there will be another episode of Imperfect Momming for you all next week. And until then, keep healing. Bye, guys. Thank you for tuning in to Imperfect Momming. It's time for us to step up and realize that our power is not in trying to shape our children. Our power lies in shaping ourselves into the people we want our children to model themselves after. Don't just do it for your kids. Do it for yourself. When you become a more self-aware, compassionate, and confident person, you and everyone around you benefit. For more information about me and my work, visit AlysiaLyons.com. That's AlysiaLyons.com. See you next time.